Hey everybody, welcome back to the Author on Wheels podcast. I'm your host, John Wood, author of A Fight to Survive, and we are finally getting ready to kick off Season 4, Episode 5 of our podcast with an incredible interview with my friend Lian van Berkel. So grab a drink, pull up a chair, and get ready for the Author on Wheels podcast. Lian van Berkel was born in the Netherlands in 1986. From the moment she was able to read and write, she has done both these things passionately. She loved nothing better at school than the opportunity to write stories. She wrote her first picture books around age 8, fan fiction of the Care Bears, and her first novel at age 12, a horror story about a teacher who mutilated his pupils with a chainsaw, co-authored with her best friend Joyce. After her A-levels, Lian went on to university to study English language and culture, as well as linguistics. She obtained a master's degree in both and a PhD in linguistics. She has also worked as a teacher and postdoctoral researcher at 2 universities. Lian is currently on disability due to having ME, aka chronic fatigue syndrome. She still tries to paint, crochet, and draw as much as she can, and she loves to visit the library when she has the energy to do so. Join us for this interview with Lian van Berkel. Okay, hey everybody. Welcome back to the Author on Wheels podcast. I'm your host, John Wood, author of A Fight to Survive. Today, we are kicking off Season 4, 5 of the podcast with an incredible interview with me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I was so honored when you asked me to join you on your podcast. So thanks very much.
The mission of the Author on Wheels podcast is to allow people to tell their story any way they possibly can. I've had people from walks of life. I've had disabled. I've denominational, multi, and it's an honor and a blessing to be able to have. Let's go ahead and lead off into our first question. Tell us a little bit about yourself, including what led you to writing.
Okay, so what I can tell about myself first is I live in the Netherlands and I am 37 years old. You said book titles. Well, I haven't actually published any books yet. I have some book chapters and journal articles, which are all non-fiction. They're scientific articles and book chapters. But I am writing several books. One of them is a fantasy novel, which doesn't really have a title yet. I say novel. It's a novel series, actually. I'm at book 5. So that story just started to happen, and then I had to write it down, and suddenly I was at 260,000 words, and I thought, this is going to be a very long book. Let me cut it into 2 books at around 230,000 words, and then, well, it kept on happening. So I'm somewhere at book 5 now, although I haven't been able to work on that series for quite some time because I am disabled and I haven't had the energy to do some actual writing on this, my favorite series. I have ME. I'm going to try and pronounce the full name, but I actually have never heard it said, so I have no idea if I'm even saying it correctly. It's myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is basically chronic fatigue syndrome, which is a lot easier to pronounce. Let me see. Yes, it's much easier. And well, it's been pretty bad lately for about 6-7 months or so. So I'm actually in a hospital bed right now as we do this recording, and I have to use a wheelchair when I go out, pushed by my husband, or I use a mobility scooter. So very, very low in energy right now. But I hope that this will get better. I am getting some treatment which will hopefully help me regain a bit of my energy. But this illness cannot be cured, so I'll never go back to what used to be normal for me. But I do hope to be able to start writing again soon. And the day before yesterday, I was working a bit on a little children's book. I also really like drawing, and I have developed a few children's picture books, which I illustrate myself, which is also a lot of fun to do. Yeah.
Very.
Yes. Thank you. Yes,
Oh.
and perhaps I can also add I may live in the Netherlands and I am Dutch, but I studied English, which, as you can probably hear, included pronunciation classes. So that is where I got my British accent. I've never actually lived there or even been there for more than 2 weeks. So, yeah.
That is very
Thanks.
incredible.
I worked very, very hard on that. A lot for years. So, yeah.
Wow. What would you say fuels your passion for all the do? I put writing, but for in your case, it would be putting together those books or crochet that you put yourself. What would you say fuels your passion for that?
Well, I have to say I'm not really sure. I just have to create stuff. And if I cannot write, I have to draw or paint or crochet. I have to make things and design things. So I learned to crochet about a year and a half ago, and after a month or two, I felt like now I really want to design something myself. I just had to design it instead of just following a pattern and um, doing what someone else had designed. I had to make my own things. And that's something that I think I've always had from the moment that I was able to read and write. I had to make up stories, and once I could hold a pen or a marker or whatever, I had to draw things. Yeah, I have this innate passion for creating things.
You have to understand. We have that drive where we can either be creative or be as creative as our big toe. Call it.
Yes.
You have to have that.
Yes.
You have to have that extra oomph to there test the waters. So, I'm creative can I be genre or in this aspect or down this avenue. So yes, I completely get it.
Exactly.
Thank you. I'm the same kind of person. If I'm not writing, podcasts or I'm, doing art, I'm doing or all these different things. Cooking in this case, I also cook, and it's like you have to explore the avenues that are available to you and that you feel that you could excel at. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
What advice those who possibly want to be creative but are having trouble finding their avenue, themselves to be creative?
I think, well, talking about writing first, because that's what I have
Yeah.
been thinking about the most. I would say you have to read a lot. And if you really want to write something, you do really have to sit down and write. It sounds so simple, and it's really hard to do in practice. But to me, I always think of writing and, of course, other creative activities as something like training your muscles. So it's kind of like a writing muscle, as I also refer to it to my students. Um, it's if you do not go to the gym regularly to train your biceps, then those biceps will weaken. If you go once a
Mm-hmm.
week, then you strengthen those biceps. But if you go every day, you strengthen those biceps even more and even better. And that's what is also needed for writing. You have to keep on practicing. It doesn't have to be writing on your big main work all the time, but if you don't do it every day, your skills will slacken. Um, so if you want to start writing, it's a good idea to start small, but to do it every day or at least every weekday, for example, at a set time that works for you for like maybe 5 or 10 minutes. That's a small thing. Or even if that's too much, one sentence. Just one sentence, that's it. Then you're done. You've reached your goal for that day. And if you start with those very small steps, you'll find yourself getting into a flow. And once you're into that flow, your brain will be trained, your writing muscles will be trained to, once you sit in that spot where you always write, and it's that time of day where you always write, the muse will be there, your inspiration will be there at that time, and um, that is going to be really helpful to be creative at that particular time. Um, so yes, that's the first thing for people who want to start. And I also think it's really important to read books or blogs on writing, also to listen to podcasts like this one, to get ideas from other writers and hear from them how they work and what they do to get those creative muscles going. And of course, they also read a lot. They all say read a lot and write a lot. But you have to find something that works for you yourself. I don't know what your schedule is, but for me, when I still have the energy to write, I would have an hour set every day after breakfast, and that was my writing spot. And I also always wrote in the same location as well, which also really helped me. Um, and that was my time of day to write, and that was when my muse knew, okay, I can be here now. And it took a little while to train my muse, so to say. Um, and sometimes I still sat there looking at a blank screen and not getting out very many words, especially if I really wanted to write on my main project and that wasn't going. But whenever I hit one of those things, one of those writing blocks, I would just open another document and start writing about what I was doing at that time, which was not writing. So I would start writing, I hate that I'm not writing. I hate that it's not going well. And once I started those sentences, the rest started to flow. And then I would usually actually write myself out of my writer's block. So, yeah, uh, that's kind of like an advice for starting writers. And also to be kind to yourself. The point of that is, I mean, what I want to say with that is your first draft is going to be shit. It's going to be absolute crap. That's why it's there, because it is a first draft. No one is ever going to read it. So just write badly, write poorly. It doesn't matter. No one's ever going to read it. And there are actually very good exercises for that to be found online, to just write for 10 minutes on whatever topic they have for the prompt. And it's going to be bad, and that's okay. But those kinds of exercises can also help you get started. To just write about the stars in the sky, for example. I also did some of those exercises with my students. I was teaching them academic writing, actually, but even that can be really daunting. And then in my classes, I would have my students just write for 10 minutes on a silly prompt. And most of them really found it very helpful to learn from that, to just start working on their academic writing exercise. Yeah. So, oh, and also, as an example, at least for my academic writing, when I submit an article to an academic journal, that's about draft 11. So, don't try to get it right on the first draft. No one gets it right on the first draft. That's impossible. So be aware of the fact that you will have to edit. And that way, it also doesn't matter if your first draft is really bad, because you're going to change it anyway. So, yeah, I think that's the advice I have for people who are interested in writing.
Blew my mind.
Oh,
That
really?
blew my mind. I here for that whole time, open dumbstruck at perfectly worded that was. Like, oh my god, exactly what we've been saying for a long time. People that their books, your first draft, yes, is going to be complete shit, and you have to get over the fact write a bestseller in a day. You know,
Exactly. That's
such an
really impossible.
wow. Okay, to round this out, contact work or
Well,
to
the
learn more
best
about
way
you.
to contact me, the best way to contact me and learn more about me is actually on Facebook. I do have a website as well, but that's all in Dutch. So for those of you who do not speak Dutch, it's better to go to Facebook, because that's all, most of it is in English. So I can say the name I have on my Facebook, but I'm not sure if that will make much sense to everyone not knowing how it's spelled. But I believe you are going to add the spelling in the introduction that's written. So on Facebook, my name is Lian van Berkel, auteur, which is just my full name ending with author in Dutch. And if you want to contact me there, my page does have a messenger button. So you can just press that and messenger me through Facebook. And well, my website is also just my name.nl, so lianvanberkel.nl. So people can contact me there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best way to get in touch with me.
And like I was about to say, all of that will be listed in the episode notes at the end of this episode. That being said, that is the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'd like to thank our guest, Lian van, for joining us on the Author on Wheels podcast. Before I go, I'd like to pose a question. How are you telling your story? We all have a story to tell. It's up to us and our unique world. As I always say, always a story. Yeah. As I always say, as good as the person telling it. Said, thank you for listening, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in today and sitting with me, Leon.
You're very
Okay?
welcome, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you very much. See you very soon. We will. All right?
Certainly, I look forward to it.
See you all soon.